Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships, and sometimes connecting these themes to other themes in the world to help us make sense of them. So let's talk about a sort of a unique kind of corner of the relationship landscape. And we're going to talk in this video about the risk of narcissistic and emotional abuse when you are in what is called a never met relationship. Do you know what a never met relationship is? It's just what it sounds like. It's people who are in some form of long distance relationship, and it may encompass lots of texting, emailing, video chatting, but the one thing that has never happened is that they've never met in person. Never met couples will give lots of reasons for why they never met. Most often they cite a lack of money and resources, so they're not able to travel, especially if it's international travel. Passport and visa restrictions can be a reason. There may be a lack of time off in a job. In some cases, they're adolescents who might have to have parents sign off on them heading out to meet someone, but there's usually a logistical reason why these people, sometimes someone's in the military, so there's a long time there someplace else where they might be able to not be able to meet someone. So people in never met relationships, in some cases, will literally have daily contact. They may video chat every day, they may text multiple times a day, but they've simply, like I said, never been in each other's physical presence. So they have not kissed, hugged, had sex, at least not in real life. But this is a narcissism channel, right? It's not a never met channel. And the question is whether the never met situation could be a setup for a sort of delayed narcissistic relationship situation, and perhaps more than in other situations where the in-person meetup happens at a first date. So let's take that on. Love bombing can happen anywhere. It can happen in real life, but it certainly can happen virtually. And it happens all the time. In fact, for some people, a lot of their love bombing does happen in virtual environments. Online love bombing, or even never met love bombing, may look like effusive texts, lots of texting, long emotional emails, lots of DMs, daily calls. It may even be physical gifts that are sent. All of the intensity without being in someone's physical presence, right? In a never met relationship, someone may tell you that this is a once in a lifetime love story and make other grandiose proclamations of the love story the two of you have. Now we know, no matter if it's virtual or not, that love bombing doesn't last forever. And you also have to keep in mind that narcissistic folks are really actually quite good at online relationships because they're very charming, they're very charismatic, they can take one hell of a sexy selfie, and they may have the time to compose just the right response to you. The advantage, if you will, of online romantic relationship spaces for narcissistic or even impulsive people is that they may have a sort of a different way of regulating themselves because the conversations may not always pull for the same kinds of real-time reactivity that you'd see in a real life relationship would pull for, those sort of quick and mean reactions that we often see in real life in narcissistic relationships. Now, that's not to say that a narcissistic person can't angry text. They can, and they definitely will. And a never met relationship is equally vulnerable to angry texting. But in a never met relationship, a narcissistic person may have a chance at keeping it together for a little longer. But that said, we know that narcissistic people can drop the meanest stuff into a text. And it may be in response to what you said, or sometimes it's just out of nowhere and bam, they just drop a bomb on you. Now, in a never met relationship, more stuff can be hidden. And a narcissistic person might be able to keep some of their more toxic stuff under wraps for longer. You may not be seeing them experiencing the kinds of stuff of life stressors that may bring out the worst in some folks, like driving in traffic or not getting the right table at the restaurant. You're not going to be with them and see those moments. You may also not get to witness the lack of equitability or balance, like them not helping with the dishes. So you may not see some of the red flags in the same way because you don't get sort of as full a look at their behavior. Now, shady behavior and betrayal behavior is obviously more common in narcissistic people. So obviously a never met relationship could be a setup for a narcissistic person to actually have multiple relationships online without another person finding out. And so the narcissistic person may be getting 2 or 3 times the amount of supply because they might be able to keep multiple virtual relationships going on, or maybe have one in real life and another one that's virtual. It would be harder to figure out if they're running this kind of shady scam because you aren't with them. Now, I have no doubt that jealousy may be quite heightened in never met relationships. But these days, because we are able to see the digital breadcrumbs that people scatter all over the world as they leave DMs and look at people's profiles and all of that, you can see how this could make a never met situation potentially quite dicey. But ultimately, a narcissistic relationship is a narcissistic relationship. And while in a never met relationship, you may not get to see their in-person tantrums, the key in a never met relationship, just like in any relationship, is to give yourself that same level of discernment. The risk of a never met relationship when it comes to narcissism is that the excitement may last longer. So over time, you may actually find yourself more pulled to justify them. People can still be late to FaceTime calls. People can still be mean and gaslighty by text. And people can definitely betray you electronically. Narcissistic folks are equal opportunity offenders. I think that never met relationships may mean that love bombing may get kind of protracted and drawn out for a longer time, but you can still get trauma bonded to someone you have never physically met. You can still be betrayed, lied to, invalidated, gaslighted, manipulated, dominated, isolated by, even if you've never met someone. Electronic spaces are very robust, and in fact, may offer even more opportunities for gaslighting, where the texting gaslighter may say to you, "Oh, you're just reading my messages wrong. Don't be so sensitive." Cues are a lot more difficult to interpret in texted communication than when we can see someone's face and their expression. There is a risk that a never met relationship may feel like a lighter lift because it doesn't require so much in-person time. So that a person who's in a never met sort of relational setup with a narcissistic person may just be one more easy to access source of supply. And then when you throw in there that a lot of people in never met relationships get resistance from the world at large, people judge never met folks, and they'll say to them things like, "You can't be in love with someone you have never met," or "This isn't a real relationship." That's not really fair to them, right? A person can certainly get hurt in an online relationship. And because the folks around them may perceive that their relationship is not real because they've never met, that when people are hurt in these never met types of relationships, they may not be able to get the support they need from other people at a time when they are confused and justifying and wondering if they're to blame, all the stuff that could happen in any unhealthy, invalidating, or toxic relationship. It doesn't matter if it's live, video, text, email, DM, or some other electronic means of talking to each other I don't even know about. Narcissistic relationships hurt. And the never met world may often get missed by folks who don't give these relationships credence. I don't know, if you have strong feelings for someone and then you're manipulated by them or deceived or invalidated or mistreated, it hurts. It doesn't matter the medium. And the grief is still very real. But then this raises the big question about, what about when the never met? Then I guess it's no longer a never met. But I think one of the big struggles is the more time that's spent in these sorts of virtual spaces, the more we've almost have been left to sort of create some of the narrative in our own minds. And so that thing that got created through this virtual space, when you meet it in real life, if indeed it is a narcissistic person, it may sting that much harder. So I guess once they meet, they're no longer a never met, and so they're not relevant to this video. But I hope that gives some clarity on a relational dynamic that you may not have known has a name, but it does, and it can still be a problem. Thanks again.